Cool. Hey, thank you for everyone for showing up. So this is our April meetup, and we're very lucky to have. I'm gonna butcher her name probably. Maricar.
Maricar.
Yes. I got it. I just remember what you told me how to say your name. Mario Kart.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's really good. She also hosts the Halifax Lockpicking Cup, and this month is going to be in April 14 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at IKEA Community Room. So, and then now she wants to do a talk on how to open lock so you can learn from it and then go practice it on the 14th.
Yeah.
And I'll hand it to her.
Thanks, Edward. So I'll just give you a slight warning. I had animations, but some of the animations don't work due to a lot of technical difficulties. So my presentation is how to pick open a lock without destroying it. Just another shameless plug. We're having our lock picking meetups every second Tuesday at IKEA from 5 to 7 p.m. This coming meetup is on the 14th of April, and everyone is welcome, no matter how good you are, whether you're a complete noob at it, or if you're really good and crack like high security locks. All right, there's some warnings for this nice hobby of ours. First of all, because of the fact that lock picking is sometimes associated with criminal activity, I have to say these things. First of all, please do not pick any lock that is in use. Second of all, please do not pick any lock that you rely on. You may break it, or or break your pick in it, and then you can't use it. Then that'd be bad. So please use common sense when you're having fun lock picking. So what is lock picking? Lock picking is opening a lock by manipulating the mechanism of a lock without using the key. The difference between that and bypassing is that you're operating the lock without actually operating the lock itself. So like, say for example, if you have a door and it's locked, you use the credit card to unlatch the locking mechanism in between the door jamb. You're not actually activating the lock at all. So most of the slides I have from now on is just about your common pin tumbler locks that you see a lot of the time, whether it's on doors or padlocks. There are other locks, but I'm not going to go into that. And I stole them shamelessly from the Open Organization of Lock Pickers. So this is what a lock will typically look like on the outside when you go and look at a doorknob or a deadbolt on your door. This is what it looks like inside. So there is a spring to hold these pins in, and the key, when you insert it into this keyway here, will drive the key pin up and push the driver pin up to clear this line between the plug, which is the center circle here, and the housing. The gap between the plug and the housing is called the shear line. Our goal when we are trying to pick open a lock is to get this gap between the key pin and the driver pin, I highlighted the wrong things, is to meet at the shear line. And when these pins are at the shear line, when you turn the plug, which is this circle thing in the center here, the plug will turn, and then you will open the door, which will activate the latch of the locking mechanism. Unfortunately, the animation did not work, so I'll just skip this slide. So this diagram is just a front image of of that, there's obviously a lot more pins in the lock itself, as you can see here. Some locks will have 6 pins. Some locks will have 8. The locks that you get on your luggage, they only have 3 pins. But like a lot of locks typically can range from like 3 to like 6 pins, depending on what they are. And the shape of these driver pins and even these key pins can be different. I'm not going to go into that today, but they are called security pins, which will make picking these very difficult. So I think the next, oh, here we go. So this is what happens when you insert a key into the lock. So as you can see, there are pits and heights on the key, as you can see here, that would drive these key pins up at a certain height to clear the key pins and the driver pins at the shear line. So if you insert the wrong key, you either have 2 situations where if the bit is way too low for one of these pins, the driver pin won't clear the shear line. And if it's too high, the key pin will actually go past the shear line, and when you try to turn the lock, these pins will be in the way of you turning the lock. When we lock pick, our goal is to move all of these pins onto the shear line without the use of the key here. So in a perfect world, a lock would be perfectly made with no imperfections, like all of the pins would be created perfectly, there would be no pits, there would be no rust, the holes will be all aligned. But because lock manufacturers have to be cheap when they manufacture these, there can be imperfections in the lock. So when we pick a lock, we take advantage of these imperfections in order to attack the lock. So let's say, for example, if one of the holes of a pin is misaligned, we can actually attack that pin first and set it to the shear line before we move on to the next pin. We don't exactly like tackle all of the pins at once. There are methods to do that. I might be able to cover that in the slides later, but for now we'll just talk about like how this would work. So we mostly need like 2 tools to pick a lock. One of them is a tensioner or a turning tool, which will allow us to turn the plug and put tension on the lock while we pick and move the pins and lift the pins up into this section of the lock here called the Bible. I'm a little sad this animation does not work, but when you put the key, when you put the lock into tension with the tension tool, and when you try to turn the plug, the pin will actually tilt sideways and will not be able to move until you lift this pin up and clear the driver pin onto the shear line. Uh-oh. Oh, did I go too fast? Uh-oh, what did I do? So This animation here will show how you set multiple pins while you're trying to pick a lock. So this turning tool will turn the plug in a certain way to make a pin bind and tilt the driver pin onto the shear line until you push it up to clear the shear line and turn the plug into a certain way. I'll just let you watch it. Sometimes the lock picker will have to like jiggle the key pins to feel where they're at in the lock, because obviously you can't see what's in the lock unless you have one of the clear locks, but a clear lock is mostly there to show you how a lock would look like while you're operating it. If you push too high onto a pin, you will actually go into the similar situation when the key pushes the driver pin a little too high, and you don't want to do that. This is what a turning tool looks like. This particular turning tool has two ends. This one's for the top of the keyway, which is the top, and this one's for the bottom of the keyway, as you can see here. This is for the bottom of the keyway, and this is for the top of the keyway. I feel like this is mostly for preference as to why you wanna use either way. I've had many people tell me they prefer to use top of the keyway because they would have a lot more control when they turn the turning tool and turn the plug, and allow more room for the pick to go through the keyway when they're manipulating the pins. I prefer bottom of the keyway, but anyway, here's more examples of how to hold a lock when you're doing it by hand. A lot of people prefer to use vices, but I don't have vices, so I can't show you any pictures of that. I also suggest that you push gently, but you could still put a lot of tension to it. But if you push too much, then you'll obviously will bend the turning tool here. I've done a few like that already. Please be gentle with your tools, otherwise you'll end up with a situation that looks like this. These are new pics here on the left side. This particular person who posted these pictures unfortunately pressed way too hard onto the lock and bent his pics like that. You can bend them back, but it depends on how really bad you bent them. But don't worry, you can get more. They're kind of like consumables like you would in Skyrim. This is how you hold your pics. When I first hosted the first meetup last month, I've seen some people hold their pics like this. It's not, in my opinion, it's not comfortable, and you won't have as much control when you try to lift the pins that way. A lot of people try to hold their pics like as if they're pencils, and plus it would give you as much control as you can when you try to manipulate the lock. Some pics come in various shapes and profiles. Like some of these hooks can be really deep or really shallow, depending on how deep a keyway can be, and it depends on what you need them for. Like this one here. This one's pretty shallow. Other people would prefer to use like diamond picks in order to have more area to push up the pins. I think this particular one is for a certain lock. I can't talk about it. I haven't encountered these locks yet. locks yet, so I can't talk about this profile. This is just a weird profile, but it is closest thing to a rake, where it has multiple humps that is located on the pick itself, and it's used to attack. I'm gonna go back to the slides. Attack multiple picks at the same time by moving the pick back and forth multiple times to hit a lot of these pins all at once, so that when it attacks all of these pins, multiple pins will actually meet the shear line as you move the pick back and forth in the keyway. As you do that, because the humps of the rake will meet all of these key pins. So now I'm going to talk about where you can get your picks. You can obviously make your own, whether if you're going to use a paper clip or wiper blades. I'm not going to talk about that. I don't know how to make tools out of those, but I know people have posted resources somewhere on the internet. I know there's an MIT manual out there somewhere. Anyway, for commercial ones where you can get like hobby grade lock picks, I suggest websites like Jimmy Long's, or from the Open Organization of Lockpickers, which I mentioned before, where I stole all of these diagrams from. Jimmy Long's is a well-known brand of lockpick maker. Is a well-known brand of lockpicks within the locksport community. They really have nice handles. I do have some of them with me when I bring them to the locksport meetup in 2 weeks. Another well-known lockpick store would be Covert Instruments. I don't know how many of you guys heard of the lockpicking lawyer. That is his store. Another well-known brand for locksmiths is Multipick. They're very pricey, but this is among the best that you can get. And this is a local brand called 𝗙𝗲𝗁 Lockpicks. Edward, you said they were at OutSec last year or a few years before? Yeah. They're Canadian-based. I've talked to a lot of people who bought these lockpicks. They're questionable in quality. They're like Amazon-grade lockpicks, but I've got the Turner tools, and they're pretty good. Your mileage may vary if you buy their picks, but at least you can get them directly here in Canada. More links. I can't really say much about them aside. If you buy your picks from Amazon, be wary that you may bend your picks because they're not great steel. And I got a link to a spreadsheet that someone made from the lockpicking Discord. Anyway, that's it for my presentation. Thanks very much. Any questions? Thank you. What's up?
Yeah, just a question with regards to the, there's the 5 pins.
Yeah.
Do you have to start, does it have to go in order, or do you go with the lowest one first, or how do you do that?
So because you can't see the lock itself when you're trying to manipulate a real lock, some people like to go in order. I personally like to go from, okay, here we go. I personally like to go from, like, I shove my pick way into the end here and start from the back to the front. And I've seen some people, like the lockpicking lawyer actually likes to go from front to back. And I test every single pin by jiggling each pin as I feel if I have set them or not. It's mostly a feeling thing, because I've tried showing people, and I even watched a video myself about it, and I still have trouble trying to tell if a pin is set or not. it's mostly by feeling, but like for me, I keep track by saying, okay, I'm testing this pin first, and then the second pin here, and so on and so forth until I get to the end, and then I go back to the back again. It's on preference on how you want to attack the lock.
So I just have a question about how the mechanism works itself.
Yeah.
So when you're using the turning tool and you're trying to get the gap between the driver pin and the key pin to line up with this shear line, right?
Yes.
Why doesn't the spring like continue pushing down on the driver pin after you move the turning tool?
So when you move the turning tool, the plug actually blocks a portion of it because it's imperfectly made. So if the holes are not aligned perfectly, perfectly, for example, as you turn the plug, parts of that plug will actually block the driver pin from being pushed down by the spring.
I see.
Yeah, I was actually surprised about it until I looked at the diagram.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I also have clear locks available for you to look at if you come to the meetup as well. Any more questions?
Is that it? Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, guys. I hope to see you all at the Locksport meetup at IKEA on the 14th.